Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Welcome everyone to our radio show this evening. I am your host, the author Denise Bryson, and I have the privilege to be interviewing Melvin E. Edwards. He is the author of The Eyes of Texans. Hi, Melvin. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Denise. How are you?
I am doing amazing. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about myself. Well, to know anything about me, you have to know how much I love writing and how much I've always loved writing. I started writing long before college, but I majored in journalism. I was on newspaper staff in high school, went through journalism school, became a journalist, newspaper reporter, eventually became a speechwriter in Texas government. And I've done some form of that for the past 35 years or so.
So tell us a little bit about your book. Let's start talking about that. The
Okay.
Eyes of Texans. I thought it was such a mess because, of course, it's a historical piece. That's one thing, and so it's historical when you think about the 6 generations that you are writing about, and just telling that whole journey and that whole story. So, tell us a little bit about The Eyes of Texans.
Okay. Well, it's a story, as you mentioned, of my family. My mother's side of the family goes back to 6 generations in Leon County, Texas, which is out in the central, south central part of the state. And my great-great-great-grandfather was an enslaved person. He was born in Maryland, which is where I live right now. Came to Texas in 1844, and my family's been in Texas since 1844. He was married when he got here. His wife was from Virginia, which ironically is where my son lives now. So I live in Maryland, where Isaac was from, and my son lives in Virginia, where Elvira was from. And my mom grew up in Leon County, as did her parents and their parents, and moved to Houston. I was born in Houston. I still consider Houston my home, although I've lived in Maryland for almost 20 years.
Kind of like me, I consider Indianapolis my home, even though I've lived in Dallas for the last 20 years. So I still call that home because that's where all my family is.
That's where your roots are.
Yeah. And because I was wondering, where is Leon County? Because I'm not a Texan, so I was like, oh my God, where is that?
Well, it's between Houston and Dallas. If you go up I-45, Centerville is the county seat of Leon County, and it's almost exactly halfway between Houston and Dallas. It's a straight shot between the two cities on I-45.
Okay, I now know I can guess where that is because I know how to get from here to Houston.
If you're driving down from Dallas and you get to the Buc-ee's in Madisonville, you've gone too far.
Okay, and I know where Buc-ee's is. We all know where Buc-ee's
everybody
is.
knows where Buc-ee's is.
So what is the significance of the book title? Why did you title the book that, of The Eyes of Texans?
That's a good question. It's called The Eyes of Texans because I wanted the reader to have a perspective, a first-person perspective. So it's like you're seeing the events through the eyes of my ancestors, the eyes of Texans. Obviously, a play on the song "The Eyes of Texas" or the poem "The Eyes of Texas," but it's the first-person perspective through their eyes. And that's where the title of the book came from.
So, what inspired you to write this particular book about your family's journey? What inspired you for that?
Well, I started doing the research back in the 80s. So I was 22 years old. I went to there's a very large genealogy library in Houston, and I started doing research there. It was a very tedious process. It was hard to find even 2 generations at that point. So it took me about 30 years to find 6 generations. For some people, 6 generations isn't that much, but considering where I started, that's taken a lot of research. So I started doing it because I wanted future generations to have an idea of where we came from and what our family was like and what Texas was like. But I didn't really intend for it to be a book. I just wanted to have the information. And I figured the best way to gather the information since I'm a writer, was to write it in a story form. And once I started writing, I realized, hey, this has potential to be a book. So I took up the idea from there and wrote it as a book. And I'm very pleased that people are excited about reading it. I didn't expect anybody to read it. It was intended intentionally just for my kids to have.
That's amazing. Because, I was just having a conversation with someone today and we were saying that, if we know our history and the journey, that, our children and our generations behind us will have a little more significance about where they're from and who they are and everything like that. And maybe it could change some perspectives in their mind about where they're going if they're
Right.
having some troubles and things like that. That may
Right.
be something that could help them. So
if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. So that's my perspective.
Exactly. There's no way. So what message do you hope that your book will bring to your readers? I know you said at first it wasn't intended to be a book, but since it is one.
It is, yes. The idea became solidified to be a book when I got about a third of the way through it. So I started thinking about how other people would see it at that point, if they were interested in reading it. But what I really hope they get from them is, even though it starts out with the devastating topic of American slavery, it's a book that has a lot of hope, a lot of perseverance through generations, and there's a lot of hope. And the American dream is strong. It's a strong force. In our family, it seemed like every generation had to start over from zero. But I'm really thankful when I found out the information that nobody really gave up. It would have been easy for them to give up, but nobody did. And that was really inspiring to me.
It was inspiring to me too, because just to look at it from that perspective of coming from slavery and then ending up in the place that you did, that's an amazing journey for your family and for your children to really grasp hold of and say, we don't have to be stuck back here in 1844. We can, we can be here in the present time and be somebody.
Right. Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Yeah. And I thought that was just so amazing. And so now, when did you in your early experience, when did you learn that you had the power of language, that language was a power for you, that writing was a power for you? When did you learn that? When did you really grasp hold of that?
Really early on, as early as first or second grade. I remember once for Mother's Day, one of our classes, we had to write a poem for our mothers for Mother's Day. And I wrote my poem for my mom and gave it to her, and remember her crying and realized, wow, even if obviously mothers have a different scale and how they grade things from everybody else, but it had an impact on her, and that had an impact on me. And so as I got a little bit older, I realized that words in general can have impacts on people. I was always a really shy kid too, though. That's another point I think I need to raise. It was much easier for me to raise my voice through the written word than it was through the spoken word. So I realized that's how I could get whatever I had to say, that's how I was going to end up saying it.
That's really great, because that makes a difference, because people have their perspective. So me, I'm a mouth runner, my mouth runner. And so I'm probably more outspoken, but then the writing side of me gets to those tender sides that, those things that I may not want to release verbally, but I can say it that way. So see how that can twist in two different ways, but still Absolutely. It's got the same, the same effect, whichever way it goes. And so that's what's so amazing. And then I wanted to ask this question too. So, okay. So I wanted to ask a question, but I'll ask that when we come back, because we got to go hear something from our wonderful sponsors. We'll be right back.
Mary Ann Fairmouth is a career consultant with 30 years experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award-winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmouth.com.
Factor 7, the newest thriller by author J.D. May, will keep you turning the pages with mystery, betrayal, lies, and infidelity. Ripped from the headlines, Factor 7 follows two prominent doctors who uncover a clandestine plot to spread a bioweapon with a 98% mortality rate. Journey with them as they experience a world of murder, power, intrigue, and corruption, where it becomes deadly clear that exposing the truth is just as dangerous as the weapon they seek to expose.
Welcome to the Lone Star Festival, where Texas authors, artists, and creators come together for a Texas-sized event. Join us on May 29th, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Town Square, downtown Seguin, Texas. Free for all readers, produced by Texas Authors Institute of History, sponsored by B4R.store, a bookstore for readers, Authors Marketing International, and the City of Seguin.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Bame's books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story. And then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Bame's books are available at B4R Store.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Welcome back to our show, everyone, where we have been having the privilege to interview Melvin E. Edwards. He is the author of The Eyes of Texans. And so we're going to continue on our journey with Melvin. So Melvin, now how long did it take you to write this book though? So I know you did almost 30 years of research, but how long did it take you to put all that together in the book form? You're
going to be surprised when I give you the answer to that question. It took me 30 years of research. It took me 3 weeks to write it.
Oh my God.
It was pretty intense. When I started writing it, my goal was to write 500 words a day. And I started, the first day I wrote 500 words. The second day I wrote about 500 words. And then I thought, I got to do this faster. It was really intense. The first part of the book, having to put myself in the mindset of where Isaac Blayton and Virginia were at that time. So I lost sleep the first couple of days because it was just so intense to me. So I thought, I got to write faster. I got to get through this faster so I can get some sleep. So I started writing like 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. And
that's
so
intense.
That's pretty intense, but it made for a nice flow. So hopefully there's some continuity in the book because of the pace that I had to build up to get through it.
And what does your family think about it? What does your family think about this book? Because it is about the family. So what do they think?
I was very pleased with the reactions. As readers will find out in the book, my parents died when I was pretty young. So obviously they didn't read it. But my mother's youngest sister, who's 80 years old, of their large family, there are only 2 surviving members, the oldest one and the youngest one. Which is interesting. The oldest one is about 97 and the youngest one's 80. And I had a book signing in San Antonio in January, and my 80-year-old aunt drove from Houston to San Antonio to come to the book signing. And I hadn't seen her in years, probably 20 years. And she had read the book, and she had actually called me a few weeks before. And after she read the book, because she was so excited about it, and she said it brought back so many good memories for her. And obviously when I was writing, I had most of the details. I had the big picture, and I had to piece together some of the details. So when she said that, it made me feel really good that I had gotten it right.
And I like what you said, that your imagination is so big that it's bigger than Texas, and that's big. That's very big. That is very, very big. And so one of the other things I liked when I was reading it, you said, I don't know if this is your quote or this is somebody says, I look in the mirror and what do I see? I see everyone who came before me. And then you say, I look into the future and what do I see? I can be anything that I want to be. And I thought that was, wow, what a statement.
Yeah, I did write that, and it's at the end of the book, and I thought that sums it up pretty well. I'm looking backwards 6 generations, and then in the final stages of the book, I look ahead a little bit. I talk about my children and grandchildren, not in a lot of detail, but I mentioned their stories, and so I wanted it to encapsulate all of that. So I'm looking into the past and realizing that I am who they were. I am the embodiment of their hopes and dreams. And then I look at my children and my grandchildren and realize they're the embodiment of my hopes and dreams. So I wrote that poetry, as I mentioned, when I was in the 1st or 2nd grade with my Mother's Day poem. It's something that's always been a part of my life. I was actually, if you believe there's actually such a title as class poet in high school, I was our class poet. And then I did some songwriting, and then I just like to write all kinds of things. But poetry has a really special place in my heart. And so I wanted to have some type of poem in there somewhere.
And have you thought about publishing some poetry? Because that would be great.
I haven't seriously thought about it. I've got a lot of it written and printed out, but I hadn't seriously thought about it. Maybe I need to think about it.
You should. I thought that too. And then I think I got mine one poem published, and then I thought, well, if they thought it's publishable, I guess I better publish the rest of this. So you should do that. I think that's, those are things those are part of our history too. If we think about all our African-American poets and things like that have made such a difference, especially in the Renaissance area and things like that. That's just such a way to do it. But now tell us about you writing for the lieutenant governor and the governor. I just want to hear about that. Okay,
yeah. Rick Perry had both of those titles. That was sort of a situation where it just sort of fell into my lap. I was a newspaper reporter. I was covering a political picnic. I met someone I knew there, and he was the chief of staff for a state senator. And one thing led to another, and they hired me to be his communications director. After a couple of years, he ran for another office and lost, which meant I had to find another job. And he told incoming Lieutenant Governor Perry about me, and I didn't apply for the job. My former boss, the state senator, told him about me. So he called me in for an interview and hired me, and that's how I ended up there. I was as surprised as anybody else. So, but I enjoyed the job. I love to write, and so having the opportunity to do some political writing and some legislative talking points and things like that, it was a fun job.
Imagine that was. I'm thinking, and so much interesting stuff was probably coming through there. But the meat of it all is that your family started out as your great grandfather. So there's 3 generations. He started out as a slave, but look where you ended up as. So that's the culmination of things, and that speaks to so much too when you think about families and just even think all the craziness that's been going on in the world today. That just because we started here don't mean we have to end up there. And so
Absolutely.
That journey can take people on, and it's really almost a journey of hope as well, as if you think about it from that perspective, how my great grandfather started here, and they went through there. And I think you talk about your grandmother, your great grandmother. I can't remember which one it was, but anyway, they died after the Civil War. So like so many months after the Civil War.
After World War II, right? She was born before the Civil War. She died after World War II, so she was almost 100 years old. She saw a little bit of everything. That's
and the longevity in your family. I know you said some of the siblings have passed on, but still there's a lot of longevity there, because one of your aunts is in her 90s, 97.
Right, 97. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's not a whole lot of middle-agers in my family. You either live a really long time or not very long. So unfortunately, my parents were on the side where they didn't live very long. My dad was 53 when he died, and my mom was 60. And also my dad's dad was 53 when he died. And this past year I turned 54. So it was a thing that was
Oh,
playing
he's like,
mind
yeah.
games with me. I'm thinking, all right, I just got to get to there. That's the safe harbor. I just got to get to 54, and then we'll go from there. And
Yeah,
so,
and that I can understand that, because that's kind of how my family was. My dad died at 50, and then my mom died at 74. But when we all passed 50, we was just excited about that, because we made it past, we made it past his age.
it's
So we
like
was
that's a
excited
speed
about
bump. That's
that.
a stumbling point there. You just got to get past that, and you'll be in a little
Yeah.
bit safer area.
That is so great. But I mean, I really love the story, and I think this is so important for, this is something that our young people need to read, and so they can see the journey that can happen, that it's not all bad, and that we don't have to. And then one of the things I saw, and I thought this was really good, and this was one of the readers' reviews, and the reader review said, this book is absolutely incredible. I felt transported. This is what he said: transported into the past, and could almost hear, see, and taste the book. I thought that was amazing, because that means you've done a really good job at your in writing it, that you're able to bring somebody into the era of that time. And so that's just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
the best book review you can get. I got that type of a comment several times on the Amazon reviews, and I also had people in person tell me that, or online, and that's the highest compliment as far as I'm concerned. Because in my mind, when I was writing it, I'm having to transport myself to that era.
Yeah.
And I wanted people to see what I was seeing. And so I'm thankful they were able to imagine the scenes and scenarios and the people's emotions and what they were doing, what they were thinking when they were doing certain things. I didn't just want it to be, I think this is the point, I had a sticker on my computer when I was writing, like, this is not a history book. This is a book of stories. And I wanted people to understand the stories. Obviously, there's a lot of history involved, but I didn't want it to get bogged down. And I wanted the history to be a part of the stories, not just stories be a part of history.
Publishing marketing package for authors. $1,500 value, save 40% now. Includes a 6-piece marketing kit of 250 bookmarks, 250 business cards, 250 postcards, 1 table banner, 1 table runner, and 50 download cards, plus book cover design, ebook creation, PDF setups, upload to Ingram Spark, scroll placement, video commercial, and interview on IBS. Plus much more. Email bourgeoismedia@look.com for details, or bourgeoismedia.com.
Hi, I'm Mel Greenberg, author of Running with Our Eyes Closed, book 1 in the Empty Nested series. To the world, Samantha has the perfect life. 3 wonderful children, a loving husband, so she thought, and a life split between Dallas and Italy. When her youngest leaves for college, it all comes crashing down, forcing Samantha to re-examine everything. Over 7 days in one of the most romantic countries in the world, Samantha faces the past she thought she'd overcome and begins to redefine her role as a woman, a wife, and a mother.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Welcome everyone back to our radio show. We have been interviewing Melvin E. Edwards. I want to get that right. And he is the author of The Eyes of Texans. And so he was born and raised in Texas, but he now resides in Maryland, but still he is still a Texan. Because you tell us a little bit about your cowboy and your cowboy boot fetish. You like the hats and the boots.
I do. I always have. When I was a kid, actually I was showing somebody a picture yesterday. When I was 5 years old, I was had my cowboy hat on, and I wore that hat until my head was too big for it. I loved going to the Houston rodeo when I was a kid. I actually saw Elvis Presley there when I was a kid. Saw the Jackson 5 there and I like the atmosphere. And my mother's two brothers were bull riders. And as I got older, I realized they were pretty old as bull riders. They were probably into their 40s and they were still riding. And most of these guys are teenagers in early 20s. So they were pretty unusual. There weren't a whole lot of black cowboys, and there were even fewer black cowboys in their 40s. So they were pretty unique. But I loved going out there, and I wasn't much of a cowboy myself, so I just sort of played the part and tried to look the part. I just couldn't do the part.
But you still got to participate.
I got to participate. I enjoyed it.
So what's next for you?
Well, I'm hoping at some point to really buckle down and do more family research, but on my dad's side. I haven't been able to find anything on his side. And I didn't even know his dad's name until I was an adult, because everybody called him by a nickname. And my dad and his siblings didn't really know what his real name was. So it took me a long time just to find that. And I think I found his mother, but I don't know my dad's grandfather. So that's the next step. Once I get some footing on that, hopefully I'll get some momentum like I did with this one, and be able to write a volume about that. I do want to mention one more thing. When I really got traction on this book was after I watched several episodes of the show, Who Do You Think You Are? And they showed them going back to the towns or states or even countries of where they came from, and that's where they were able to find more information. And once I went back to Leon County, I was able to find a few things like this 1870 census, which is the first census where former slaves were mentioned by name. Once I got a copy of that, it made the research much easier.
Can I ask you? So that's what you're going to working on now. Do you have any upcoming events or anything? And where can we find you on social media?
Yes, my next event will be at the Lone Star Book Festival in Seguin, Texas, Memorial Day weekend. So I'm looking forward to coming down, and I'm always looking forward to coming to Texas, but I'm looking forward to coming down to sign some books and meet some people, and hopefully they've read the book by that point and have some stories of their own to share with me. So that's my next event in May. The book can be bought on Amazon, also on B4R bookstore, and it's available at the Twig bookshop in San Antonio.
You also have an audio version of it.
I do. I have an audio version that came out a couple months ago. I didn't do the reading myself. I hired a voice actor who did all the voices, and including the female voices. But he did a great job. He really did a great job, and I was really pleased with the final product. But it's available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes.
Great. Well, it has been such a pleasure talking to you about this journey and about the eyes of Texans, and just knowing what it took to write the book and all that. And then you did 30 years of research, but 3 weeks of writing. That's amazing, by itself. And then just the reviews, like I said, that you're drawing your audience in to the time period, and that's really so good, so they can take that journey along, because that's really what you want your books to do, your writing to do, is take them on that journey. So anyway, we're going to wrap it up for today, and we thank you so much for joining us, Melvin. It has been my pleasure to talk about your written masterpiece, and that is exactly what it is, a masterpiece. So thank you for your time that you shared on the show tonight. And please remember, I want everybody to remember to support our authors. I'm telling you, you want to get this amazing book. It's amazing, especially for your kids. This is something that you can let your teenagers read, so they can see the journey of how you can come from slavery and go all the way to to the state, the highest in this state, to the state house, and be something amazing. So someone amazing. So we want you to do that. Please support our authors. And so anyway, we're going to say good night. I have been your host, Denise Bryson, and it has been a pleasure, Melvin. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it too. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show, produced by Biala Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International LLC. Copyright 2021. Voiceover by Biala Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please email us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on the show, please complete the form found on our website at indiebeacon.com. You may also watch previous year's shows on the website. Music is Frolic of Words, created for Indie Beacon